Hello class! Today for our story time we are going to be reading one of my favorite books, and it is called Good Night Moon. But before we get into the book, let's talk about what are our important parts of the book that I know we know. So what is this? This is our front cover, and this is our back cover. Good. And what is this? We know this one. It is the spine. And what does the spine do? It keeps the book together. Good. And then who writes our story? The author. And who draws the pictures? The illustrator. Good. So now that we know that about our book, let's look at the book. It is called Good Night Moon. And let's look at some of the things that we see on our front cover. We see a moon and a window, so that must mean that it's nighttime, and a fireplace, and a picture of a cow jumping over the moon. So it looks like this is a bedroom. So we're gonna read it and we're gonna see what it's about. But first, I want you to take out that Post-it note that I gave you, and we're gonna create a prediction. What is a prediction? It's a guess about what the story is going to be about. So let's go ahead and quickly write our prediction for what we think the story Good Night Moon is going to be about. So go ahead and do that. Okay, let's get started. It's called Good Night Moon by Margaret Wise Brown and pictures by Clement Hurd. In the great green room, there was a telephone and a red balloon and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. So let's pause really quick. Would you see a cow jumping over the moon in real life? Do you think we would? Is that something that is made up, or is that something that is real? So let's do a little turn and talk. So turn to the person next to you and let's talk about, would you see a cow jumping over the moon tonight, or is that something that's just made up? So go ahead and do a little turn and talk with your partner. Okay, so the cow jumping over the moon, and there were 3 little bears sitting on chairs. Lots of things in this room. And 2 little kittens and a pair of mittens, and a little toy house and a young mouse, and a comb and a brush and a bowl full of mush, and a quiet old lady who was whispering, so, it looks like our character is getting ready to go to bed. Because why? Is his mom telling him to hush? So, let's take a look. And what are some things that you do when you need to go to bed? We all do different things when we go to bed. I like to have a cup of tea. You can take a shower, brush your teeth. So, let's take a minute and quietly stand up and carefully stand up. And we're going to act out something that we do before we go to bed. So you can brush your teeth, you can brush your hair, you can take a shower, you can have a cup of milk, you can read a story. So let's act out some things that we do before we go to sleep. So, good job. Let's keep going. Good night room. Good night moon. Good night cow jumping over the moon. Good night light and the red balloon. Good night bears. Good night chairs. Good night kittens and good night mittens. Good night clocks and good night socks. Good night little house. Good night little mouse. So, we're saying goodnight to a lot of things at once. So what we're gonna do is I want you to remember, think. What are some things that we have said goodnight to in the story? So what you're gonna do, you're gonna take your hand, you're gonna whisper a little secret in your hand. Tell me one thing that you remember our character said goodnight to. So you could say, good night, mouse. Go ahead and whisper in your hand. One thing that you can remember. Good. All right, let's keep going. Good night comb and good night brush. You've got lots of things in our room. Good night, nobody. Good night, mush. And good night to the old lady, whispering, hush. Good night, stars, and good night, air. Good night, noises everywhere. All right, the end. What a great story. One of my favorites. My mom used to read that to me when I was a little girl. So now that we finished our story, we're gonna go back to our Post-it note and we're gonna look at what we said our prediction would be, our guess. What was our guess of what the story would be about? Were we right or were we wrong? So let's take a look at our Post-it note, and you're going to do another little stop and jot. We're going to write on the Post-it, were we right about our prediction or were we wrong? And then you're gonna write and tell me, what was the book actually about? So go ahead and do that, and that was the end of our book. So I hope you enjoyed it. That was Goodnight Moon. So enjoy.